She left me for another man, had his baby. Then I ran into her at the mall. She chased me into the rain and confessed something that changed everything. That baby might have been mine all along. I saw her before she saw me. That's how these things always begin. You think you've buried someone deep enough that the world will never bring them back. But the world has a cruel sense of humor. I was standing near the escalator at the mall, pretending to study a display of watches I had no intention of buying. Then I heard a laugh. Soft, familiar, the kind of laugh that once lived inside my apartment, inside my bed, inside my future. My body reacted before my mind did. I froze. Slowly I turned. And there she was. Emily. 3 years. 3 long, quiet years since she walked out of my life and into another man's arms. She stood near the children's store, holding the hand of a small boy, maybe 2 years old. Dark hair, big eyes. My chest tightened. I didn't need to do the math. She had left me. 2 months later, she was engaged. 5 months later, she was pregnant. At least, that's what she told everyone. The boy tugged her sleeve. She leaned down, brushing his hair back with the same gentle motion she once used on me. Something sharp twisted inside my ribs. I turned away immediately. No drama, no scene, just quiet retreat. I walked toward the exit like a man leaving a burning building. But halfway across the parking lot, I heard footsteps. Running, then her voice. Wait! Rain had just started falling. Light. Cold. I kept walking. Please, just wait. Her hand grabbed my arm. I turned slowly. She looked different. Older. Tired. But her eyes were the same storm that ruined my life. I need to tell you something, she said. Her voice trembled. The rain grew heavier, and then she whispered the sentence that split the past open like a wound. I think the baby might be yours. At first I laughed. Not loudly, just a quiet breath of disbelief. Rain slid down my face. Or maybe it was something else. You're joking, I said. She shook her head immediately. I'm not. Her fingers tightened around my sleeve like I might disappear. The boy stood a few feet away under the mall awning, watching us with quiet curiosity. My eyes drifted toward him. Dark hair, dark eyes. Something about his face stirred a memory I didn't want to acknowledge. I forced the thought away. You left me, I said calmly. You remember that part, right? Her gaze dropped to the pavement. I know. No, I continued quietly. You didn't just leave. You cheated. Then you married him? I didn't marry him. That caught my attention. I looked at her again. He left, she said softly. The words hung in the rain between us. Of course he did. Men like that always do. So now, I said slowly, you suddenly think the kid might be mine. Tears mixed with rain on her cheeks. I didn't know at the time, she whispered. I swear I didn't. I studied her face carefully. 3 years ago, I would have believed anything she said. Now every word felt like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. You told everyone the baby was his, I said. I thought it was. And suddenly it isn't? Her hands trembled. I found something, she said. A pause. A medical document. Blood types. I said nothing. The doctor asked questions I couldn't answer. The rain was pouring harder now. Cars moved through the parking lot with quiet splashes. I didn't know who else to tell, she whispered. Of course she didn't. Because if she was telling the truth, then the story everyone believed about our breakup wasn't just betrayal. It was something worse, something messier. And suddenly that little boy standing under the awning wasn't just a stranger. He was a question. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just told her one thing. I'll think about it. Then I walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of Emily. Emily was a ghost long buried. But the boy, that was the problem. Because my mind kept replaying his face, his eyes. Something in them felt uncomfortably familiar. I hated the idea. Hated it with a cold, burning intensity. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. It creeps in slowly, quietly, like water through cracks in a wall. So I started asking questions, carefully. First I looked up public records, birth date, hospital, timeline, then I did the math again. More carefully this time. Emily had left me in March. The baby was born the following January. 10 months, which meant conception. My stomach tightened. February, the month before she left. I leaned back in my chair, silent, still. That alone meant nothing. But it also meant something. The next step was easier. A friend of mine worked in medical administration. He owed me a favor. I told him I needed information about pediatric blood records connected to a specific hospital. It took 3 days. 3 long days of pretending I didn't care. Then the email arrived. 2 files. Emily's blood type. The child's blood type. I opened them slowly. AB negative, O positive. I frowned. Something about that combination felt wrong. So I called someone who would know. My cousin, a genetics professor. I asked casually. Hypothetically, I said, could an AB negative mother and an O positive father produce that? Silence on the line. Then he said something that made my pulse slow to a dangerous calm. No, not possible. I stared at the wall for a long time after that, because if Emily was AB negative and the baby was O positive, then the man she thought was the father wasn't. Which meant one thing. There had been another man. But there was still one more piece missing. So I did the one thing that would end the question forever. I ordered a DNA test. The results arrived 2 weeks later. Plain envelope. Unremarkable. Almost boring. The kind of package that could quietly destroy a life. I opened it at my kitchen table. No ceremony. No hesitation. Just paper sliding against paper. Then the result. 99.98%. I stared at the number for a long time. Not shocked. Not angry. Just still. So she hadn't lied. At least not about this. The boy was mine. My son, 3 years old, raised by another man, hidden behind someone else's last name. My chest felt strangely empty. Not pain, not joy, just clarity. I called Emily. Meet me, I said. No explanation, no emotion. We met at a quiet cafe the next afternoon. She looked terrified when she sat down. Her hands shook around the coffee cup. Did you? I slid the folder across the table. She didn't open it immediately. I already know what it says, she whispered. Then read it. Slowly she did. Her shoulders began shaking halfway through the page. Tears fell onto the paper. Oh God! I watched her calmly. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Her voice cracked. I ruined everything. Yes, she had, but not in the way she thought. You cheated, I said quietly. She nodded through tears. Yes. You left. Another nod. Yes. And you spent 3 years raising my son with another man. Her breathing broke apart. I didn't know. Maybe. Silence fell between us. Cold. Heavy. She looked at me like a person waiting for a verdict. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is loud. What I felt was something quieter. Something colder. Understanding. You should tell him, I said. Her eyes widened. Him? The man who left you. He's gone. Find him. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Why? I leaned back calmly. Because he deserves to know he spent 3 years raising another man's child. Her face drained of color. That would destroy him. Yes. And you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You're doing this to hurt me. I shook my head slowly. No. I tapped the folder gently. I'm doing this because the truth belongs to everyone involved. Her voice trembled. Do you hate me? I thought about the question carefully. 3 years ago, the answer would have been yes. Now? No, I said quietly. And that was the cruelest truth of all. Because hate means someone still matters. She broke down completely then. Crying, apologizing, grasping for forgiveness that no longer existed. I was scared, she sobbed. I thought he was better than you. I nodded slowly. That part was obvious. She covered her face. I ruined our lives. Yes. Then I stood up. She grabbed my wrist desperately. What about the baby? I looked down at her. At the woman who once controlled my entire world. My son, I corrected calmly. Her grip tightened. What happens now? I gently removed her hand. That depends on you. On me? Yes. I slid a business card onto the table. A lawyer. Her breathing slowed. You already planned this. Of course I had. Truth is most powerful when delivered slowly. Carefully. Precisely. I want custody discussions started, I said. Her eyes widened. You can't just... I can. My voice stayed calm. And you know why? She didn't answer. Because the DNA test says I'm his father. Silence. Cold. Absolute. I saw my son for the first time a week later. Really saw him. Not across a parking lot. Not through rain. Up close, he had my eyes. That was the first thing I noticed. The second thing was the way he stared back at me. Curious. Unafraid. Children don't understand betrayal. They don't understand lies. They only understand presence. Emily stood in the doorway behind him. Quiet, broken, watching the consequences of 3 years unfold in real time. I knelt down slowly. "Hey," I said softly. The boy tilted his head. "Hi." Such a small voice, such a massive truth. Behind him, Emily began crying again. But I didn't look at her. Because for the first time since the mall, she wasn't the center of the story anymore. He was. I stood there with him for a long moment. Then I glanced back at Emily one last time. No anger, no love, just distance. Truth has a way of catching up, I said quietly. Then I took my son's small hand and walked forward into a life that had almost been stolen from me, leaving her behind with the only thing she had left. The consequences,